Hello, online pipe community. Ethan, Parsimonious Piper here. Today, we're going to show a parsimonious pipe and talk about some cars. But first, I'm not smoking my parsimonious pipe today. Wasn't quite finished drying. I am, however, smoking this lovely little Manfred Hortig pipe. Manfred Hortig is a German artisan. Makes some lovely stuff. And in it, I have got a treat. But I let that treat go out. I'll get it lit in a second. I am smoking some John Cotton's double-pressed dark-fired. Now, a lot of you like the Mac Baren HH Old Dark-Fired. Some of you like their HH Bold Kentucky. Bold Kentucky being sort of a stronger, more Kentucky-ish version of Old Dark-Fired. Well, for those of you who like John Cotton's double-pressed Kentucky, this is similar in its analogous way. It is a stronger, darker, deeper flavored version of that Kentucky, just like the Bold Kentucky is to the Old Dark-Fired. It is delicious, just like the double-pressed Kentucky. However, it's not available in bulk, and I'm getting to where the only things I buy anymore, for the most part, are things that I can buy in bulk so that I can cellar them. Too many good blends out there that way. If I could find this on sale, yes, I would buy it, no question. But I won't pay full price for it. It's not that much different, if at all, from HH Bold Kentucky, which I can get in bulk, and which is a 5-star blend for me. So, yes, I would rate this 5 stars. It's good. But I'll buy Bold Kentucky since I can get it in bulk. Good stuff. Well, let's take a look at this week's Parsimonious pipe. This week's Parsimonious pipe turned out to be a little bit of a heartbreaker for me. Let me show you what it is. It is a little Dublin Bold Love It sort of thing. It's a saddle-stemmed Dublin. Almost, I would want that shank to be just a little bit longer to really call it a Love It. Let's take a closer look. Right off the bat here, you see part of my heartbreak. In the top picture, you see what looked to be 2 7-point stars. Well, the 7-point stars were brass inlays. I assumed there was brass inlay under that grime. So I cleaned it up. You can see the stummel cleaned up very nicely. You can see the grain a little bit better down below. There was just a thin layer of grime on the briar. I only hit this with magic erasers, the stem. And you can see in the bottom, those stars are now barely visible, which means the brass inlays had come out, and in removing the oxidation, some of the vulcanite was removed along with it, and the stars or where they were, the imprint from the brass stars, is only barely visible. Now, the only other possibility that I can think of is that these were actually stamped 7-point stars. Not sure about that, never heard of that. Here you can see a close-up of the after. The stars are still just barely visible, so I will not be polishing this stem. It will stay matte black, because if I polish it, those stars disappear completely. Here in the top picture, you can see there's a little bit of lava going around the rim. Cleaned that up, and in the bottom, you can see some of that is actually char. The grain itself, the wood, you can see is burnt a little bit. I chose not to sand this down. Sometimes I have. This one, I decided to just leave those battle scars there, and since the stem is also a goner, it just wasn't worth topping this one. Such is the gamble of restoring an old pipe. The internals cleaned up nicely, and again, you can see a little bit more grain in the bottom picture along the stummel. All of the internals nice and clean, and you can see that in the before picture, the stars were still visible, and in the after picture, at least at this angle, they are not at all. We shall see if any dust accumulates in there, that's what you were seeing in those above pictures, is just some dust and years of dirt accumulated right there along that edge. And we'll see if that happens in the bottom. Chances are good that it won't, because since I can't buff this one, I will probably oil it every time I smoke it and it will stay clean. A little bit of a disappointment there, because for a 2-star where the stars disappeared, I paid almost $40, which is about what I pay for a 3-star and 2-star that are in where the stars are actually still there in brass. Let me put it that way. Pretty little pipe. You win some, you lose some. That's one of the very, very few where I have gambled and lost. But in my version of this hobby, it's still I'm only out. Well, I'm not really out. I spent $40. I have a very pretty, very perfectly smokable pipe. It just doesn't have the stars that I was hoping it would have. So I'm still looking for a 2-star Dublin-esque. Love it, because I know they exist. All right. Cars. Pipe Monkey Gary and Aaron, Chronicles of a Pipe Maker, are going together and coming up with a new channel called Tongue Bite. You need to drop by their channels to get a hint about what's going on there. Gary asked the other day, in a general spiel about cars, what was our first car, best car, worst car, favorite car, least favorite car, etc. What are we driving now? Well, I suppose because the term worst is simply a superlative, and it means the least good of all of the ones that I've had. I have had a worse car. I told him I hadn't really. Well, I've never had any cars that I hated. Probably my least favorite car was a Chrysler PT Cruiser. It was not the turbo version. It handled really tight, which would have been nice if it had any power, but it was like it had maybe 10 gerbil power. I'm not sure it was up to horsepower. It was horrible in the power department. Lots of room, built like a tank, and like I said, on the corners, that thing handled really tight. It was great, but you had to get the speed up and then maintain momentum because it had no acceleration. My first car was a 1973 Pontiac Catalina, 400, 4-barrel, 3-speed automatic. Bought it from a little old lady in Pasadena. Some of you will get that reference, but it's close to true. Spent $300 on that, buying it from my great-grandma. And my parents actually bought it. They bought it so that I could drive it around, and it was a tank. If y'all recall the Lincolns of the 1990s, before they downsized the town car, this car was bigger than the 90s town car. It was huge. It was one of those, it wasn't as big as a 60s or 50s Cadillac, but man, it was that in between, and it was still a big car. And a gas guzzler. Man, if I got 10 miles a gallon, that was a good day. But gas was less than $1 a gallon back then. Significantly less. And man, could that thing burn the rubber. Tell you, with that big 400, all you had to do is stomp on the gas, and it did not matter how slow or fast you were going, the tires spun, even with new tires on. It was just that much torque. Those old 70s engines, man, they were just a beast. So that was probably... That was my first car that was dedicated to me. The first car I actually owned, my parents, in exchange for me taking a full academic scholarship to college, my parents bought me a Ford Escort, little black sport version. I liked that car, little hatchback. It handled decent, had decent power, a great suspension. Now, the first car I ever paid for myself, let's go back to Pontiac, was a 1976 Pontiac Catalina with the 400, 4-barrel, 3-speed automatic transmission. Same exact color and interior as the 73 I'd had in high school. The difference was the one that I bought in grad school cost me $1,000. The air conditioning didn't work, the windshield wipers didn't work, and the passenger side front door had to be opened from the inside with a screwdriver. But I put a good stereo in it, and I got some good mileage out of that car. It was fantastic. Now, I've had a couple of cars that I really loved. I had an Acura 3.5 RL, fantastic handling little car, great acceleration, great handling, comfy for a small car. I had been in love with them since they first came out as a joint venture. What was the British company they did the joint venture with? Honda did before it became Acura. And I can't remember the name of the company. One of you guys, maybe you, Gary, will remember. Back in the early 90s, Honda did this joint venture, and what came out of that eventually became Acura. And the Legend, I think, was the first model when Acura took back over. But this, the 3.5 RL was one of the cars that I wanted back when it was still in this joint venture model version. Nice exotic wood interior with leather and Japanese longevity and reliability. Now, another one of my favorite cars was, in fact, a big Lincoln. It was a 1995 Lincoln Town Car. That thing would hold 20 people. I was going to say bodies in the trunk. We used to joke about how many bodies would fit in the trunk. That thing was it was huge. Now, not as big as the Pontiac, but let me tell you, Lincoln, oh man, smooth ride. Well, and that brings me up to the two that are probably my favorites. And those are the ones that we have right now. We've got a 2012 Nissan Xterra, the Pro 4X off-road model. And that one is just, that's nothing but fun when you get it off the pavement. And then my little baby that you guys have seen me in, well, I was in it just earlier this week. 2014 Mazda Miata, the last full year of the power retractable hardtop. And I love that thing. Well, Gary, you and Aaron, I wish you all the luck in your new channel. I will definitely be watching. Some of y'all should too. I have not seen whether the new channel is actually up, so drop by Pipe Monkey Gary. He'll be down below. Aaron, Chronicles of a Pipe Maker. He'll be down below. And look for Tongue Bites. And I think they're spelling it TUNGBYTES or some such. Watch their videos to get the accurate information on that. With that, folks, light something you like. Double pressed, dark fired. Good stuff. I do like it. Enjoy your afternoon.